Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. This is episode 8 of Learn Lightroom Live. I'm your host, Josh Baker. Welcome to the stream. Yeah. Um, hey, look at there. We have video and everything. Today we're going to be going through 3 photos. 2 of them are user submitted from our lovely patrons. And then one is one of my photos that I really struggled with editing. I kind of wanted to walk through my struggles and to hopefully illustrate kind of how I solved the problem of getting the color to be the way I wanted it to be. Today we're going to be repping our PPA shirt. I've been a PPA member for like 10 or 11 years now. If you need equipment insurance and like liability insurance and just all around education, I think PPA is great. I recommend it pretty fully. I think they're a great organization. They're the only National Photographer Association out there. So yeah, repping some PPA love today. Look at that. Over 150 years of protecting photographers' interests. Incidentally, they just passed a new small claims court bid where it's easier for photographers to get damages for companies using your photos without permission. So yay, PPA. So that's why I'm repping them today. All right. All right. So I'll just give everybody a minute or two to hop in. If y'all have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat window. I can see them over on my other monitor. The first one we're going to do today is going to be a bird photo, which, you know me, all the birds I photograph, which isn't very much. Although I did take some this weekend. I found a spot with some egrets and some ducks, and I just happened to have a telephoto lens with them, so I took some bird photos. They're not very good. I'm not a bird photographer whatsoever. I've maybe done it 3 times and they've been bad every time. So, but I've shot a lot of sports. I've shot a lot of action. I've shot a lot of that stuff. So I have an idea of what to do with everything. I don't know all the tips and tricks of being really great at getting close to birds. I don't know if you can tell I'm kind of loud. I don't really do quiet very well. And so I kind of scare them off before I get close enough. So I just need that new Canon 1200 millimeter lens they're coming out with, and just go crazy telephoto, and I can just shoot birds from my house. So yeah, so this first photo is from one of our patrons, Christina. The link's there, patreon.com/Azolix. If you want to support our live streams, our podcasts, our educational articles, we love supporters. We try to put out content every week. So yeah, and I throw out kind of exclusive photos. We do a lot of educational articles, and then all of our media live streams and podcasts that we're doing. So anyway. Hey Donna, hey Chris, what's up? See, Chris, you're up first. You're right on time. You're on time. So Chris submitted this photo of an eagle with a fish in its claws, and it's awesome. Let me show you her edit first. And so this is what she sent me as kind of her edit, and that's pretty cool. Right, it's pretty cool. There is a little bit of motion in the wings. Can't fix that, but I like that there's a little bit of motion. Just like cars, I don't want to shoot. For me personally, I like to see a little bit of, motion in my. It makes it look like it's faster. Too fast of a shutter speed with cars and birds. And I think they just look like they're models sitting in the air. So this is what she submitted as kind of her edit, and then this is the raw file. Okay, and so. Let's kind of talk through what's going on here. So this was shot with an Olympus camera, I believe, a Leica with a 100 to 400 at 150 millimeters. Okay, ISO 200, so nice and low, low ISO. 150. So yeah. Yeah, Olympus raw file, right? So micro four thirds. So that's just the I key. The I key will toggle like when it was taken, date, time, file size, and you can go and see your lens and all that. So the I button will toggle between those informations. And we're in the develop module. I should have said that. We're in the develop module here in Lightroom. So yeah, so I just want to say out loud the things that I see that I like and want to fix in this photo. So one, I think we have some interesting kind of orange warmth on the top of the waves, and then I like the blue on the bottom. Okay, so if you look at the waves, we have kind of this this orange-blue contrast. I want to maintain that. I don't want to go crazy with my exposure so much that I lose the detail in the water, because I think that's an interesting part of this photo. Two, just looking at it, it's underexposed. Just no way around it. It's probably about 2 stops underexposed. We have the white in the head of this eagle, and so we want that to be white because it is. And so this is kind of a truthful edit. Okay, so I picked this one first. This is going to be a truthful edit where we just want to bring out what we already have. The next photo is going to be more of a cinematic edit where we're going to go for a feel, not necessarily for a correct. So first things first, what I see is, you know, I'd want to crop in some. Okay, that's just off the bat. I want to see more of the bird. So we're going to start with our crop tool. I want to talk about the crop tool just a little bit. This is my standard overlay, O for overlay. Thank you, Dell. And if you hit the O button, you can toggle between different overlays. And so we can crop along to those. Now on this one, the Fibonacci spiral, if we hit Shift and O, we can actually move that around. So I'm just hitting, you can hear my keyboard, right? Every time I hit the letter O and holding Shift, it moves that around, okay? And then if I just go back to just tapping O, it'll give me different overlays. And in this case, I'm actually gonna go to, I'm kind of feeling cinematic today. So I'm going to go 16 by 9. I don't know. I'm just kind of feeling it. One, that's the lines that we're getting are these kind of really long horizontals. And that's the motion that the eagle's flying. And so we're going to crop down, just dragging with the mouse. And I'm just going to kind of throw, I don't know. So I'm going to crop it this way so that the eagle has room to fly in the frame. Okay. So just right off the bat, this just feels, I don't know, it just feels cool to me. But what we're doing is it's giving the eagle, he's looking this way. And so we're just giving that room to run. Let's go ahead and go to, nope, not that one. There we go. Now you can see full screen edit. Okay, so we're getting room to run here, right? We're giving him room to fly. And so I think this is kind of bringing in the action, right? We got water droplets now that are more apparent. And he's still sharp here. Okay, the second thing that I would start off with, and it's something that if you listen to me talk at any length, you know I'm a huge proponent of, which is calibrating your cameras. Now this isn't my photo, this is Christina's photo, and so I don't own this camera, so I couldn't do a calibration for it. But what I did, I just went to inside of Lightroom, you can go to camera matching in the profiles. So I went down to camera matching and I just picked natural. And that's just the one I picked. I thought that was the closest to kind of what I wanted. But these are the ones where they're trying to match what Olympus was doing with their own profiles. So that's always the first place for me, is starting with the correct profile. If I had this camera, I would set it up and I would create my own profile based on the X-Rite Color Checker Passport, and then it would give me a little bit even stronger rendition of the exact colors that camera and that sensor render. And so from here, the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna brighten it up just to see kind of what, yeah, fill the frame. That's right, Steven, fill the frame. And so I am going to bring my exposure up. And it's going to take about 2 stops. We can see this histogram, right? It's just now in the center, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to 2 stops more. Ooh. Okay. And what this does, this gets me closer. So now the detail is starting to look right on my eagle here, okay? We can see more of the fish. We can see more of the water droplets. There's still a little bit of black through here. And so we're going to want to raise that. I'm not going to mess with contrast yet. So let's go ahead and raise the shadows. I just want to see just a little bit of the underside there. I don't know, maybe like plus 30, let's say. Just to start to see just a little bit in here. Okay. Now, if you notice, I love the waves, but we're starting to kind of lose some of the information in the waves. So I'm going to bring that back by dropping my highlights down. Okay. And I'm going to fix it again here. I'm going to do some other stuff to fix it, but I just want to bring my highlights down. I do want to bring my whites up, and just for the right through here, right at his head and that cowl. Okay, so I'm not worried about the water. I just kind of want to bring up my whites. And And I'm kind of keeping an eye on my histogram up top. I'm not overexposed in any place here. I still have a lot of headroom there to go. Okay. So what I'm going to do from there, my blacks aren't blocked off, so I'm just going to leave that alone for now. We're going to add just a little bit of texture, like 5 clarity. Now let's add a little bit of dehaze. Now dehaze is localized contrast. It's the newest addition to the presence part of Lightroom 10. So I think it was a 9 as well, but it was designed to get rid of fog. But what it does is it adds localized contrast. It makes everything just a little punchier, right? So if we subtracted it, it would make everything look foggy. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And then as we add it in, it just kind of adds in that punch. And that's kind of the best way I can describe it. Clarity is like your 90s skateboard mag, grabbing that like high clarity. Right, that's a little too much. We don't want that much clarity. We don't need to go to 100, maybe 5, just a little bit. We'll add some more and more localized. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit of vibrance. We're going to go from 10 to 20. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the letter Y just to give a quick check to see where we were to where we are. Okay. So it's starting to look pretty good, right? It's looking a little bit better. We've kind of got our big blocks moved. And so now we need to move our little blocks, all right? For me, the next thing that I would look at, I want that water to be saturated and underexposed while keeping some of that eagle there. So I'm going to go to my Radial Filter, okay? And I am going to create a circle around this eagle, okay? And then I'm going to lower my highlights and then lower my exposure. Okay. Let's say 0.6. Nope, not +6, -6. Okay. And if I hover over on that pin, you'll see that it just kind of blends in that area right around. And I'm going to shape it just a little bit to fit the shape of our wings there. Okay. And then further, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the range mask. I'm going to use the luminance part of the range mask. And I'm going to say if it was already dark, don't make it darker. But everything else, darken. Okay. So that'll kind of take care of the wings there. And then we'll have a smoothness of like 80. Okay. And then I will come back and darken even more. Okay. So if I hit Y again, do you see that we're kind of, I want to guide your eye to where the action is. So I'm making that brighter. And then further, what I'm going to do another radial. And then we're going to add a little bit of exposure to our pretty bird here. And then while I'm adding exposure, I'm going to go ahead and add some clarity. Okay. Let's add a little bit of clarity, a little bit of texture. Let's just see how that looks. So I'm just going to do it right there, right over the bird. Okay. Now I could use a brush and paint it in, but I find that the edges get to be a little, I don't know. They get to be a little, I don't think it's as smooth as the radial. The radial brush to me, it reminds me of like old school dodging and burning. And so, I don't know, maybe it just fits my mentality a little bit more. You know what, let's go ahead and boost the whites. I want that white of the cow to really kind of pop off. Okay, so inside this radial tool, we have +5 exposure, +30 whites, +20 texture, +20 clarity. If I hit this little button down here, this little gray toggle, we can see what that does or doesn't do. Those put in both of my radial filters, so we can see the overall effect. Okay. Okay. So we're getting closer. If we hit the Y, okay, we're starting to get a little bit closer now. It's starting to look a little bit more dramatic, but still keeping some of these blues. Let's go to our HSL panel, and HSL is going to allow us for individual color channels to raise or lower the luminosity of each channel individually. And so in this case, I want these oranges to darken up, and I want those blues to darken up just a little bit. Okay. Okay. And then furthermore, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create my own kind of sunset. So I have a preset for my radial, my gradient, and my brush tools. I call it Sunburst Grad. And it's +25 temp, +2 exposure, +30 highlights. And I'm just going to drag that from the direction I feel like the light is coming, which is upper right. I'm just adding some warmth coming across my scene. Okay. And then I have an opposite one I call Ice Grad. That's just my own preset. -20 temp, -0.1 exposure, +20 contrast. Not blow it up, blew it up. So now we have a little bit of orange-blue contrast in my scene. Okay. So we're starting to get pretty close now. Ooh. And we're freezing something. I'm good at this today. There we go. Boom. All right. So now we have that blue coming across as well. So that gives us some... Oh, Lightroom's having some fun with me. What this is doing is creating a contrast to our eyes. So instead of everything being uniform... there. Hey, we're back. With everything being across the same, it's just making it more contrasty. Man, let's go back to here for a minute while Lightroom figures itself out. My GPU is deciding that it doesn't like me right now. Good times. Went all the way down to 1 frame per second. That's great. That's great. So the downside of using a lot of radial tools and gradient tools is that it does use your GPU pretty high. Oof. And my streaming software also uses my GPU. All right. All right. And we're back. Whew. My computer was struggling there for about a minute. Look at that. All right. So that's kind of... Without going into color grading, which I'm not going to get into in this photo, but that's kind of what I would do as a way to, just add some interest for the viewer. So where the orange and the blue meet is where my subject is, and that also happens to be the brightest spot in the image. And so if we go back to the original her edit, I do like the blues, but I think it's overall just a little bit cold. Whereas this one feels like it has a little bit more warmth to it. So, and then earlier today I was playing around, and this was just another edit for me. I was kind of playing around, but it's mostly the same thing. So this is just my trial edit there. So yeah. Anyway, there you go, Chris. Yeah, not too bad, right? Not too bad. All right. Man. All of a sudden, my GPU is just going crazy. Let's close that tab. All right, everyone. So, Mr. Steven there submitted this photo. I'm guessing this is from the Moose Peterson workshop, I believe. Oh, man. Yeah, Steven, am I right on that? That this is from the Moose Peterson like sunset portraits or like skyline portraits, something like that? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Oh man. Come on, GPU, catch up. I have a really good GPU too. This is frustrating. So I think whenever I start with a photo, I like starting off with what I want to do. So I say kind of out loud like what I like or what I don't like. And so for this photo, it feels a little red, and it feels I don't know. It's just lacking that something, but it feels a little too hot and a little too red. And the sky doesn't really have definition. I want it to feel like a frame from an image. Donna, please don't send me all your bird pics. This is just me struggling with birds. That is not my wheelhouse. Give them to Steven. Yeah. I just edit a lot of photos. That's all it is. So, yeah, cool. Okay. So again, the first thing the first thing I would start with is the profile. So the first thing I would want to do is go to camera standard. Again, I think this was shot with the 70 Mark II, and I don't have that profile. And so the first thing I would do is just change it to camera standard. Whoo, man. And it makes it super red because that is the wrong one. Let's go to camera faithful. Okay. And so now we feel like it's very like crispy red. Way too red. But here's a trick. Here's a good trick. And the trick being, oh, not me. You don't want more of me. Let's go full screen edit. So the trick being that both of our subjects, Dylan here and Sarah, are both wearing white. And because they're wearing white, it makes it very easy to white balance off of that. All I need to do is take my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to click on the white t-shirt, and it is going to neutralize all of those reds. Boom. Just like that. So if you ever are shooting real estate, I use that tool on like electric switches or light switches or electrical sockets because they're typically white plastic. So that's a great, easy place to white balance on. For corporate events, people usually wear name tags that have white in them. I use that. For portraits, a lot of times I use that eyedropper. I drop it right on their eye. And that gives me a way to kind of white balance, or at least give me a starting spot for my white balance. So this is maybe a little too cool, but that gave me a starting spot. So we're just going to warm it up just a touch. Let's go to maybe 3,500. There we go. A little bit of warmth, but not a crazy amount. Okay. Secondly, I'm just going to go down the line. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of exposure, maybe half a stop. There we go, half a stop. Now Sarah, Miss Jonesy over there, now she looks kind of right. We have a little bit more definition over here. Now I would say that if we're looking at this model on the far left, she's kind of losing out there. So I'm just going to raise up my shadows just to kind of give a little detail into that jumpsuit or whatever it is she's wearing. So we'll raise up our shadows maybe, let's say 35. That sounds good. For the highlights, let's bring our highlights down. There we go. Now they're not so punchy. So we'll go like maybe 30. We'll take our whites, give them a little boost. Whites to me is always kind of the brightness of the image. In this case, let's just give it like a 10. Just give it a little punch. And I'm going to leave the blacks alone because if I look at my histogram there, it's already pretty close to the edge. Now, I will say, I don't know why, I usually don't crop my photos this way, but this also feels like a 16:9 crop. And so I want it to feel more like a movie frame because there's a lot going on this photo. So just that kind of fill in my frame, boom. Now it feels like a movie poster. Yeah, I like that a little better. All right. Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit of touch of texture, like 2, and clarity 2, just a little bit, and then dehaze. I just like to add maybe 5, and it just gives it just a little bit of a punch to it without going overboard. Again, I like Vibrance about 15. That's kind of mine. I never use saturation. Honestly, the only time I use saturation is to make a photo black and white. I just drag the saturation to 0 or to minus 100, and that gives me my black and white photo while still being able to adjust white balance. Okay. So really what I want to talk about here is color grading, okay? So if we say out loud kind of what we think this photo feels like, it still feels a little red, a little orange to me. So for my midtones, I'm going to go opposite of what I see, okay? So in this case, on my midtones, I see a lot of orange and red, and so I'm going to go opposite. And I'm going to cool down my midtones. So midtones are going to get a little bit of blue, okay? And then with holding the shift key, once I get my color selected, I can move up and down that channel without worry of moving off my spot. Okay, so there we go. Just a little bit of cool there. You know what? From my highlights, I do want to add a little bit of that orange though. So for my highlights, I want just a little bit of that kind of orange. There we go. I may flip that. So shadows, I'm going to go even more like blue magenta. Kind of right in there. There we go. Maybe a little red. Highlights. Boom. Yeah, there we go. Starting to get a little feel. I still feel like Dylan's a little pink. We'll fix that here in a second. Let's go away from the magenta even more in our midtones. There we go. And then what I can do, I can blend that in a little bit more. So I'll just blend it in. And that blends in my zones. And then for the balance, I'm going to balance it to the shadow side. So I want more blue than yellow. See how my shadows are blue, my highlights are kind of this yellow-green. So balance shifts it away, and it adds to the shadow side and takes away from the highlight side. So I don't know, like -30 or something like that now. So let's just do a quick sanity check. We'll hit the letter Y. And so what we started with is on the left, and where we're at now is on the right. Cool, starting to feel better. Now, I would say that Jonesy's skin is pretty bright here. Dylan's is kind of in the middle. And then over here, we're starting to lose here. So again, I think just a little radial tool. Radial may not be so fun. Just a little bit of exposure. So again, this is just dodging and burning, right? This is just old school dodge and burn, just like we did in the film rooms. So half a stop of exposure. And I'm just going to drag it over, I don't know, this person's face. So we're just kind of center it right on her nose. Maybe bring it down a little bit. Okay, if I hover over, it'll kind of show you, yeah, just right in there, right? So it's just going to brighten that up where her face is more balanced with Sarah's face over here. Okay. And that kind of evens out that exposure for me. So if I hit Y, we can kind of see now from where we started on the left and where we ended up on the right. And this to me just feels like it's more cinematic, whereas this feels very orange, very red. Yeah. The other thing I might do in the luminous palette for skin tone, I love taking the dropper there, just going over to skin areas and brightening it up. Okay. And it just kind of brightens up our skin, makes it pop off against the background. And then for the sky, I want to drop that. Let's make that down even more. There we go. So we took the blues down. Look, aqua got -13, blue got -41. We boosted the reds and oranges. Okay, so my sky got darker, my skin got brighter. So it's going to make our subjects pop off against that background even more. Yeah. How we liking that, Steven? We like where we went with that? Boom. That looks good to me. Man, that looks fun, right? Looks like a sci-fi movie or something going on. So those are our first two. Those are both from some of our patrons. Again, patreon.com/Azulux if you want to be a supporter of the things we do with this. And I have one more bonus one. It's from a photo shoot I did in my kitchen. And I was playing with a lot of the same kind of blue and orange contrast. So my lighting was actually blue and orange. And so let's take a look at that. Yeah. Your wife said, wow. See, you're a good photographer. You just don't know how to edit yet. It's all right. You don't shoot portraits but like once a year. So it's all good. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. All right. Let's go back to full. So earlier, I did edit all these photos earlier just to give a... so here was my early run. I can never replicate the same thing I did. I think I maybe like this better. I went a little bit different direction with my split toning. But not too much, but similar. But I can never recreate my stuff. That's always why I save my presets. And then I don't know if, for those of you who are my patrons, I don't know if you've been noticing, but I've been posting my presets in all my articles. So you can download them and try them out so you can play with see what I did. So yeah. All right. So this was shot. This is my friend Marissa, and she's a fun actress, and she wore a pirate shirt. And what I was playing with was two things. One, I was playing with working with orange and blue, that kind of cyan orange color contrast. It's kind of the most natural. It's the one that the humans react the most to. And I was also playing with learning how to gel a beauty dish, which is harder than you might think. It took a lot of gaffer tape to get it to work. So I have an orange, an orange gel on a white beauty dish. That's the light on her cheek. And then the fill light is an umbrella with a blue gel. So we have blue and we have orange working here. So that's light I added into the scene. Okay. So again, then this was shot in my R6. This is also part of me testing my R6. So the first, right off the bat, it's underexposed. So let's kind of fix that first. Maybe like 0.9. Yeah, we'll start at 0.9. And so what I want to show you is how crazy it is. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but this R6 responds more to calibration than most of my cameras have. The difference between like my calibrated 5D4 and my uncalibrated 5D4 wasn't that big of a difference. The difference between my R6 uncalibrated and calibrated is huge. So watch this. Watch how different the colors will go. Like crazy, like very different. Right off the bat. Okay. So that's kind of the first thing. Make sure you calibrate your cameras. If anybody ever needs to borrow my X-Rite, let me know. You come over to the house, shoot it on my driveway, then you'll have the files. You can do what you need. All right, so this is still a little bit underexposed. I didn't know how far it was going to go. Let's go ahead and go to like 1.5. There we go. Now I can actually see her face. Okay. Now, it auto white balanced here, and I could use this white balance tool. The problem is I wasn't using any neutral light, so her white shirt is going to go very wrong. It's going to go very blue if I do it on the orange, or if it's going to go very orange if I do it on the blue, right? Because they're opposite colors. So I don't really have a clear space to white balance off of. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, okay? Because if I do the white of her shirt on the blue side, it's going to give me 7,900 Kelvin. That's too much. And I don't like all that red. And if I did it on the orange side, it's going to make everything too blue. And so for me, when I'm confused and when I'm lost, I do 4,800, 0. And that's just kind of a starting neutral point for me. And it tends to work. Canons tend to be a little bit more in the reds. Nikons tend to be a little bit more in the blues and greens. And so for me, my Canon, for whatever reason, 4,800 and 0 is just a great neutral starting spot for me. Okay. Close some windows here. Maybe we can get our frame rate back up. Ooh. Lightroom's not happy with me. Should have optimized beforehand. All right. So if we're sitting here looking at this, there's a couple things. If we can just look at our histogram and tell that it's underexposed for most of the photo, except on her cheek, which is already getting close to being overexposed. So adding more exposure isn't necessarily going to get me to where I want to be. And so what I'm going to start with is boosting my shadows. Okay. So let's just boost shadows 50 and let's get some of that detail in her hair, in the background, in her jeans. And I don't know if that's enough. Let's go all the way to like 66. Okay. So now we're kind of getting close to evening out this difference. If I take my highlights down, it's going to give me a little bit more room. So what we're playing with here when we do this is the relative difference between the different zones of exposure. I tend to bring my highlights down. That's just kind of one of my go-tos. You know, those shadows are a little too high. I don't like that much now that I lowered that. And so this just allows me to kind of play with ratios. We're going to brighten everything up. 1.8. I was very underexposed. I don't know why I was so underexposed when I shot this. I'm usually within about a stop. Anyway, that's frustrating. Okay, so we're close. Let Let's go ahead and add some vibrance. Now, what's interesting about this, because I used lighting with 2 different colors, I can do a lot of work with my HSL panel because half her face is orange and half her face is blue. And so I can play with those relative color channels and brightness levels, or saturation if I wanted to as well. So if I go to saturation, go to my little dropper, I can just drag it right on her cheek, and I'm just going to ramp it up. And so we're going to saturate the aquas and blues to really bring that out. And I'm going to take out just a little bit of that hotness and orangeness in the cheeks. Okay, just a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to go over to my luminance and do the same thing, but I'm going to brighten up her cheek. So I'm going to brighten up that orange color, right? And then I'm going to take the blues. I'll just grab a little bit of swatch there, and I'm going to pull down the blues. And it's really going to accentuate the contrast between the orange and the blue, okay? So again, just a quick sanity check. We'll hit the letter Y. Okay. So that's that's starting to be a good, interesting part. Now for me, for a portrait especially, I want you going to the face, right? That's just kind of my first natural thing. And so you can do it 2 ways. You can either add a little bit of exposure. You can either add exposure to this area, or you can subtract from around. So let's subtract this time. Last time we added. So let's just subtract, I don't know, minus 0.4. And we're just going to draw an area around her face. And so everything outside the circle gets minus 0.4, and then it feathers from this line inward. So if we hover, we see just that little bit. So it's just going to kind of get in there. And what I'm actually going to do is also cool down the area outside of her. Okay, we're going to cool that area down to really accentuate the blue. And then we'll see if we need to add red. Nope. Green. Yeah, maybe just a little bit of green as well. Because it's not really a blue, it's more like a cyan. So there we go. We're just accentuating the blue outside to make that little bit of orange even more apparent. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to add a little bit of dehaze. I'm going to add a little bit more because I want more contrast here. Just maybe 10. And then I'm going to look up here at my histogram and see that, my blacks are getting pretty close to losing. So let's boost my blacks maybe 10. And then likewise, let's take our whites up maybe 20. Yeah. All right. Again, hit the letter Y, sanity check. Yeah, it's looking good. Looking good. Okay. Now, for this photo, for really to finish up, I would do 2 things. I'm only going to show you one because my computer is not being fun today. And that is, I would color grade this a little bit more. I'm going to add more orange to my highlights because I just want a little more orange there. Not red, too much. And then the second thing that I would do after I play with color grading, I would do skin softening inside of Portrait Pro. Right now I'm using Portrait Pro 21, I think. I've been using it for like 7 versions. It's a great way to retouch skin. I just find it very nice to retouch skin instead of trying to do it inside Lightroom. Lightroom is not great for that. And I think all efforts to smooth skin in Lightroom are kind of futile, and they end up looking like cartoon characters pretty quick. So we're just doing a little bit of color grading here. I'm just adding some orange to my highlights and midtones, some blues to my shadows, and I'm going to take my balance over into the highlight side. Cool. So if we look at her skin, we can kind of see some, I was using a pretty soft modifier, but we're still getting some texture here. I can zoom in, you can see it more. We're starting to get, we have a little bit of bumps here, here, and here, a little bit of hair going across. That type of stuff is going to be better in Photoshop. So what I would do is, I would go edit in Photoshop, round trip it, bring in my skin retouching, bring in my spot healing. So let me show you what that finished version is going to look like. Oop, that's not the finished version. Gonna hit G to go to the library real quick to find it. But I just don't trust my computer to run Photoshop and Lightroom and my streaming right now. So That's just what we're going to do. This shoot also is one that I first started playing with a projector again. We have a good projector now where I don't have to shoot at crazy slow frame rates. So yeah. So not exactly the same file, but let me show you kind of what that skin retouching might look like. There we go. So it's just a lot smoother through here. No blemishes. The hair's gone. Just a little bit smoother. Added a little bit of contouring to her cheeks and stuff. Yeah, there we go. Here's another version of it. She didn't move too much, but it's just a lot smoother. It's going to render a lot better. It's going to print a lot smoother. There is still some detail in there. I don't like going completely without texture and detail, but just really cleaning it up. And that's done all outside of Lightroom. I just don't find that that's a good use for Lightroom. Again, you can just see this has been skin retouched. Okay. So look at this. How fun is that, huh? That's all with the projector. Very fun. So, yeah. Awesome. Yay. All right, guys. Well, that was some live edits in Lightroom. If you have questions, throw them in the comments. If you want, I don't know what I'm going to do for February's Lightroom. If y'all have suggestions, I'm up for it. If not, I'll probably just do another live edit. So I'll probably have another call for files because I think this is fun. I think it's fun to see like where a photo can go and kind of see what maybe you might have missed. Because sometimes it's just that one thing that we miss. You know, it just happens sometimes. So, but yeah, thanks for joining us today. This was a nice short one, only 40 minutes. Yeah, if you have questions, you know, go ahead and throw them out to me. I'm happy to answer them in whatever form you choose to message me in. Colton is saying hello behind me. You can say hello, Colton. Right here. Say hello, Colton.
Hello.
There you go. He's 10 now. I know, it's crazy. So yeah, this has been episode 8 of Learn Lightroom Live with Josh Baker. And we'll see you on 2 weeks for Josh Says Mean Things. Awesome. See y'all then.